Hi, today is the lecture in 6th week. That is April 24th. Today I will explain a little bit about the midterm exam, and that will be by online. And May 1st, that is the Friday in the 7th week, we'll take midterm exam by online. The time is fixed from 6 o'clock in the afternoon until 6:15 for 15 minutes. And the number of questions will be 25. Thus, you should solve as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And the points will be 100. And these points, your points will be used for 20% of the final grade. And that is open book and open lecture materials. Scope will be this for that midterm exam. About HTML and CSS. Around roughly 15 minutes about HTML and 15 questions about HTML and around 10 questions roughly. That is about CSS. Thus in total 25 questions will be asked. And in this CSS tutorial, all chapters except that cross-marked chapters will be asked. Thus, you don't need to look at that cross-marked chapters. Just for reference, you can refer to them. And another section that is called CSS Advanced. In the previous lecture in last year, that was called CSS 5, but that is renamed as CSS Advanced. And some chapters are selected, and some chapters are also selected from this CSS responsive. Probably 12 chapters are selected from the CSS Advanced section, and about CSS responsive, probably 5 chapters. Thus, in total, 17 selected chapters are probably the scope for that midterm exam. Of course, HTML and the CSS tutorial, and also this one, 12 chapters and 5 chapters. Those are scope for this midterm exam. Exactly same like your practice quiz test as well as the online quiz test you did already. You did the practice already, and I am assuming you are very familiar to that UI to take the quiz test. Also, I am always here, I am checking your manipulation capability. That is very important. Thus, you are supposed to manipulate in very fast mode. Also, you should not make any mistake, I'm assuming. And you should use this Blackboard URL, blackboard.sejong.h.kr. And please do not use this Blackboard app. And exactly same as you did already for this practice quiz test and online quiz test. Okay, that is the introduction in this sixth week lecture, and I will go into the main lecture for the sixth lecture. Okay, today is sixth week, and before starting today's lecture, I will announce some guidelines in this simple web page, youngkim.net. As I explained already, we are using this web page, and a simple one. And here I inserted the URL and the hyperlinking lecture number here, and those are hyperlinked. Those are YouTube lecture materials. You can click here, then you can watch the YouTube video instead. Also, you can refer to that video or the same videos in the Blackboard. Sometimes if the Blackboard system is not working because of a system failure, then you can instead try watching the video in this YouTube. Okay, and if you are clicking this one, then we can go to the these contents, and here we can see. Okay, I will enlarge a little bit. We can see this announcement. If I am changing that announcement, and the previous one is stored in the Blackboard, those are accumulated, and you can refer to the previous announcements in the Blackboard. But the most recent one, updated one, is here. And when I am updating, I am writing the title to this updated date. Today is April 13th, thus I updated this one, and you can refer to the contents here. As I showed in the youngkim.net web page, this one is the same YouTube lecture materials. You can click and you can watch that lecture videos. Okay, you can refer to others, and as I mentioned already, our lectures are extended in terms of online, and until May 3rd. That is the end of the midterm exam week, and we'll take the online midterm exam, and I'll explain today in advance. As I modified already, you can see the PDF file in youngkim.net in terms of that lecture schedule. Midterm exam will be considered 20% for the final grading, and the final exam will be 50%. And quiz and homework, those are added up together, and finally that will be the 20% for the final grading. Attendance will be 10%. Thus, please try to check the video watching. After that, the watching, you can see the attendance, and that will be updated. After 7th week, I will apply the year attendance result to the university U-check system, and that will be applied. Okay, I will explain again. Online quiz number 1, April 17th, we took already, and midterm exam will be May 1st. The time is fixed from 6 p.m. until 6:15 p.m. Okay. If you have any question about the lecture, then please ask in the Q&A menu in the Blackboard, or you can send email to me. Okay, I will explain about the midterm exam. Because the others finished already. Because we are in the 6th week, I'm assuming. Midterm exam schedule, May 1st. Time is fixed here, this time. You can refer to that time and the scope here. HTML, CSS assignments. Those are just a reading and watching assignment. Number 3 is to introduce yourself, making YouTube video. And the total 25 questions will be asked. And you should solve in 15 minutes. And a little more in detail about that scope. HTML, CSS tutorial, and CSS Advanced, CSS responsive. Examples and the exercise in the w3schools.com website. About HTML, HTML tutorial and HTML forms, as we learned already, HTML media, those are the sections for that HTML. And you can refer to that lecture videos. HTML lecture number 1 through lecture number 4, and the CSS3 lecture number 5 and lecture number 6. This lecture is lecture number 6. About CSS tutorial, all chapters except that crossed marked chapters considered for the midterm exam scope. Thus, you don't need to worry about this one. Those are mainly for reference, and those are not included in the Qs or midterm exam, and you don't need to worry about that. We finished already these Qs, this midterm exam. You don't need to worry about that. And about CSS Advanced and the CSS Responsive, 17 selected chapters, following chapters will be considered for the scope for the midterm exam. Here, those are enumerated here. And about the CSS Responsive, 5 chapters are here. Those will be considered for the midterm exam. Okay, that's it. In advance, final exam schedule will be like this. June 26th, Friday, 7 through 8 p.m. Scope will be JavaScript, HTML, APIs using JavaScript, and the jQuery and the assignment after midterm exam. That is number 4 and number 5, number 6. Okay. About your attendance check, I will apply your result in the Blackboard attendance check. I will apply to that result to the U-check system after completion of 7th week. That means after midterm exam, I will apply your attendance result to the U-check system. Okay, that's it. And let's move to today's lecture. Here in this w3schools.com website, we can see this first page. and here you can click this one, CSS tutorial, and in the left side you can see the menus here, and in the last lecture we completed around here, and some chapters are excluded, thus you can refer to them. And here, even though this one is excluded, let's look at briefly, and let's try to complete this section. Okay, this one is explaining about the website layout, and here header and the navigation menu and the content, main content and content, like that. Footer, and we can implement with this CSS style, and also navigation bar, we can use this CSS style, and some class name here, and you can report to them. And let's move to the bottom, and now you should report to them. And we are using this add media screen, and maximum is 600 pixels. This one is a kind of responsive web design. This is called responsive layout, and this one is making the 3 columns stack on top of each other instead of next to each other on smaller screens. Thus, depending upon the screen size, that will be changed, and anyhow we'll learn about this responsive web design in other last section in about this CSS. And anyhow, in the 6th week, probably lecture number C, in the 6th week, we learn about that responsive web design. Thus, we learn there in more detail about that. Thus, this one is just for reference. Let's move to the next one. Okay, this one is included. This one is about the CSS units. We have 2 kinds of units, absolute length here. About the absolute length, centimeter and millimeter, inches, pixel, points. Those are absolute length units. And this will appear as exactly that size because that is absolute length. And this one is not recommended usually. Absolute length units are not recommended for use on screen because the screen size, depending upon your device, for example PC or smartphone, depending upon your device, that screen size will be different. Thus, instead of that, relative length may be better. Here, relative length units, those are relative length units. This one is specifying a length relative to another length property. And this relative length units scales better between different rendering mediums, even though those are different sized devices. Okay, this one is working better. And those are relative units. EM, character EM, and EX, and viewport width. Those are okay, relative units. You can report to them. Okay, let's move to the next. CSS specificity. This one is about how much specific in terms of the CSS style declaration. And if multiply declared or multiply defined, then which one will be applied for the final CSS result. And And this one is about the specific, how much it is specific, and that is called the specificity. This specificity is a common reason why our CSS rules don't apply to some elements, although we think they should. And thus we should understand the specificity hierarchy. Depending upon that, that will be applied or not. Which one is the highest priority? This inline style. And this one is the next one in terms of hierarchy. IDs and the class and attributes and the pseudo classes. Those are a little bit lower hierarchy. And in terms of the hierarchy, the lowest one is elements and the pseudo elements, like this. H1, div, column before, after, those are pseudo elements. Those are lowest hierarchy, and that means if they are existing at the same time, this one will be the apply with highest priority. The others will be neglected. How to calculate specific? You don't need to worry about the number, but we have some way to provide some number in terms of that specificity. And just you can refer to them. Let's move here. Equal specificity. In terms of background color, those are defined twice here. First here, secondary here. Then which one will be applied finally. Eventually the last one, latest rule, that will be applied. Thus let's look at this real example. Red color. Background color will be red color, but previous one was declaring the color is yellow. But which one will be applied? Here, the last one will be applied if those are using the same property name here, and the others are same. Then last one will be applied, as explained here. The letter rule is always applied. Equal specificity. Okay, ID selectors have a higher specificity than attribute selectors. If multiply those are declared in terms of that background color, here that is defined due to the color green and the yellow color here and the blue color. And which one will be applied finally? And here, the first one. This one is using the ID name, and the specificity is more specific. div and very specific, and ID name A, and instead of this second one, just ID name A, and the last one is attribute ID. And comparing to that, this first one is in more hierarchy, in the highest hierarchy. That will be applied. The first rule is more specific than the other two, and that will be applied finally. And the contextual selectors are more specific than a single element selector. The embedded style sheet is close to the element to be styled. There's here external style here and the internal style here. Then which one will be applied? This one will be applied. The letter, this one, internal style, that will be applied finally. A class selector will win. That means with any number of element selectors, a class selector such as here intro, that means class name intro, that is H1. finally that will win, and that will be applied finally, yellow color, instead of the second one, because that is class name. Okay. And okay, let's move to the next topic. Here we are just moving into this section, CSS Advanced. In the previous previous lecture, in other probably in last year or 2 years ago, it was named CSS 3, and that name is being changed, CSS Advanced. And that is about CSS 3 if we are comparing to the previous one. Okay, we learn about these chapters, and as I mentioned already, I am selecting 12 chapters here, and about this CSS responsive, 5 chapters, and those are introduced in the announcement. You can report to that announcement which chapters are being selected, and I will explain on my lecture here. Let's start from here. Okay, here, okay. Rounded corners. As the name is meaning, and this is rounded corner. Rounded corner. And we have the property name border radius, because that is a circle. That arc is a portion of the circle. And if we are providing some radius, depending upon the radius of the circle, that roundness, that will be changed. And here, CSS border radius property. Here, let's look at this one. Border radius, this one is for that circle. And the portion, that means an arc of that circle, will be used for that border, that corner, and depending upon that radius value, that roundness level will be different. Okay, let's look at this example here. Corner 1. Okay, border radius 25 pixel. And that is R corners 1, the ID name. You can report to that ID name R corners 1. That is first one here. Rounded corners here. This paragraph. And we can change that. You can see the difference. Then you can understand better. Okay, I reduced the value of that radius, border radius, then that is being changed like this. Less rounded, because that value is reduced from 25 to 5. Let's try to increase a little bit, 50, then more rounded. We have many property names for that. Depending upon the corner, we have different name of that property. And we can use this shorthand property name, border radius, instead of the full property name. That is a little bit complicated. Border top left radius, border top right radius. Instead of that, border radius will be more convenient. Then we can use that shorthand property name. we can specify each corner in different roundness depending upon that radius value, and the enumerated numbers are matched to each one. First one is top value, top left, and the second one is top right. Third one is bottom right, in that sequence, like clockwise direction. And the last one is the left bottom. If only 3 values are provided here, then the first one will be applied here, and second one is here, third one is applied here, and the fourth one is missing. Then diagonally, that the same radius value will be applied. If only 2 values are provided here, then sequentially the first one is this top left, and the second one is this right top, and after that the others are diagonally same. Those matched values, and those values will be used. With one value, then each corner will use the same value in terms of that radius value. Okay, you can refer to others. Okay, these border images, this is not selected. Anyhow, this one is not selected, and just for reference, you can refer to that contents. If you want to provide some different image style here in terms of that borderline, then you can use that borderline into that image. That is called border image property. And you can refer to this, and you can use this one, and also you can use this one depending upon that style definition. This one is not selected. Just for reference, later you can read that. Multiple backgrounds. Okay, background. Okay, let me check the selected chapters here. CSS rounded corners and CSS. Okay, let me try to reduce a little bit. CSS backgrounds and gradients and so on. There's also that is not selected. Even though that is not selected, let's try to look at. This is multiple backgrounds. Here we have several property names. Those are related to these multiple backgrounds. We can control the background size in terms of design, and background origin and the background clip. Here, this chapter, we learn how to add multiple background images to one element. We'll also learn about the following properties. Here's a multiple backgrounds. Okay, with this example, let's look at, and that may be better for understanding. Here, background image. First one. Second one. First one is flower. This flower. Second one is paper. Wall. And background position. First one is right bottom. Thus the flower is shown here. Right bottom side in this area. And the second one, paper. That is shown here, and the left top. And in terms of repeatedness, if that is not repeated, then in that case that is shown just once, like that, no repeat. And the paper is repeated. Let's try to change that. Second one first. Instead of that repeat, let's try to use no repeat. Then the paper here just once, one original image that will be shown instead of the repeating is like this. But if we are using repeat, then that will be repeated again and again according to the size. That will be repeated again and again, like this. If I am trying to enlarge, then it is repeating more to fill that area. If I am changing this no repeat to repeat, then let's see what's happening. Okay, those that flowers are repeated again and again like this. Thus the others we learned already, and let's focus only that new topic here, and that's it. Okay, another example. Here, background image. This is shorthand property. Instead of the using the full property name, we can simply use this background, and this one is shorthand property. Then we can enumerate that URL and the location and the repeatedness and the URL for the second image, and also the location where that should be shown, and repeatedness we can enumerate here. About the background size, we can control the background size depending upon our design. We need to control the size, and this background size property will be used for that. Let's look at this real example. Here, I'll shrink a little bit. This one is first example number 1. Borderline here, that is using shorthand property as we learned already, and this one is we are learning especially here background size and the background repeatedness, no repeat, and this is size for that. And we can control. How about shrinking like that? Very small image like that. And we can repeat instead of no repeat. Then let's see what's happening here, like this. About example 2, you can see there is no declaration about this background size, then the original actual size that will be used. That is about the size, background size. We learned about that. And also another value, that is, okay, let's look at this explanation. Those values for the background size, those are contain and cover. What's that? This contain keyword, that value. This one is scaling the background image to be as large as possible. Okay, cover means it is covering whole area. This keyword scales the background image so that the content area is completely covered. Thus this value, name, contain, and cover, those are being used. Let's look at this real example. Okay, here, background size. We are looking at this one, this property name. And if this property has the value contain, then this image will be contained here. Thus it will not clipped. The whole complete image will be contained. But sometimes the empty space is here and we want to cover whole area, then we can use this cover. Then this one is covering whole area. This one is using cover. This one is using the background size contain. The values, those are different. Contain, and this one is cover. And if there's no definition, no declaration about the background size, then in terms of design that will be a little bit ugly. And some portion of that image is being shown here, because the original image is like that. Third one is this. Okay, first and the third one. There's here, original image is this, that is shown here. And div, this one is third one, first one, second and third one is this, div3. This one is using class name div3, div3 is using this. This one is using the default value in terms of the background size. That is not defined here. Thus, to the actual image, a portion of that is being shown here. In terms of design, it is not recommended. To define sizes of multiple background images, okay, to this background size, some values are enumerated here, and depending upon the image, background image here, and we can control the size, and we can enumerate those values here. Then each one will be corresponding to the image and the size here, image and the size. And the first one is 3 image here, and second one is flower, and third one is the wallpaper, paper, that is auto. And this one is, as we learned, this one is containing some URL for the image and the location and the repeatedness for each image. Okay, let's see. Let's try to change a little bit. Instead of the 50 pixel, let's try to shrink a little bit. You can see the images size is reduced. Full size background image. And sometimes we want to have a background image on our website that is covering the entire browser window at all times. And if possible, we should fill the entire page into the image, no white space. and the scale image as needed, and center if possible, that should be centered. And if possible, we don't need to use the scroll bar. Let's look at this real example. Here, this one is using this declaration. Background will be like this shorthand property. URL, no repeat, centered and fixed. And the background size is covered. And if we are using contain, and that will be changed a little bit to contain the whole image. And some empty space here, because that size is, image size is not matched to that window size. To cover, we should use cover instead of this contain value. Previous one, let's look at about that. This is a hero image, like this. This is called hero image. And here, this one is using some advanced property, CSS property. Advanced CSS chapters will be discussed later, and that is about transform. And this one is another chapter that will be introduced later, and this one is shown in advance. We are learning about this now. Background, URL, no repeat, the center. And sometimes we want to show this kind of the text, and that should be aligned the center, in the center. And this was using the position. Okay, if we are removing this one, we can see the difference. And you can see to show properly in the center, we need to use that the position. Then we can control where that should be shown. Here we want to show in the center. And in that case, we should use the relative position here, as we learned. But this one is not the main content to learn here. We are learning about that to show this one and transform, but this one is introduced in advanced, thus we learn later about this one. If we are removing this one, let's see what's happening. Cut and run, and you can see to control, we need to adjust and we need to use some style property name and to control that. But at this moment, this is not very good example. And now, to show this kind of hero image, we need to show that the description in the center. Then we may use position and that transform, even though those are not introduced yet. Later we learn about that, in detail about that. Thus we need more work to show the beautiful design. Okay, this one is about CSS Background Origin property. Okay, here, let's look at this one, and we learn this real example. And here, about the background origin, we can have the value, border box, or content box. Depending upon that, we can see different background image. Let's look at the first one here. This one is explained about the background origin property, and no background origin, then this padding box. This is padding box. That is default, and here padding 35 pixel, and we are not using background origin here. Then this background image will be shown like that. If we are comparing to this one, then we can see what's the main difference between that. If we are using the default here, that is the default. This one is using padding box. Even though we are not describing here, the background origin that is using padding box. Background origin that is padding box. Then this background image will be shown like that. There is no clipping. This image is not clipped. Until here, just before that, the borderline, that is padding area, and that is shown here. Thus, there is no clip. But if we are using the border box for that the background origin, then this is borderline. That image will be extended to the borderline, and we can see some clipped area. It is not so good in terms of design, but we are learning about the effect when we are using background origin due to the different values. Then depending upon that value, the clipping will be different. Here, content box. The last one is the content box. Just before the padding area, this is shown in the content area. That is content box. Okay, this topic is about the CSS background clip property. Here, we are now looking at 3 examples here. First one is not using background clip property, and this one is simply using the default value. Default is border box here. We are showing this background clip. If we are using padding box, background image will be extended to fill that the padding box area. This is using the padding box value for that background clip property. Default is like this, extended to the borderline. This one is shown you to the dotted line. If we are not dotted line, then we cannot see the effect properly. And the final one, third one is showing the value content box. Then this background is simply the yellow background that is shown in the content box area. Okay, try others by yourself. Okay, colors. I am skipping this one because this one is repeated again and again, and the same, exactly same. Thus you can refer to that. Anyhow, we learned in the previous lectures. And let's look at these gradients. This one is included for that 12 chapters. Selected 12 chapters, I mean. CSS gradients. This is gradient effect. not so clear, but we can see other gradient effect, gradient background actually. The gradients, CSS gradients let us display smooth transitions between two or more specific colors. And there are two types of gradients, linearly and radially. That is called linear gradients and radial gradients. And then we'll look at those examples. First one is the CSS linear gradient. Syntax is like that. Background image and the linear gradient and direction, color stop, color stop. Color stop means some color at that point. Which color should be shown at that point? That is called color stop. Default is top to bottom. Gradually that is being changed, but from which location to which location? The default is from top to the bottom. As you can see, red color, and finally that will be changed to the yellow color. And this is the source for that. Here we are using this and we are focusing on that. Background image. This one is background image, and we are using this linear gradient value, and this one is containing two parameters, red, yellow. Red means the starting color, and yellow is the ending color, and between them gradually it is being changed automatically like that. That is called gradient. Linearly changing, it is being changed, thus it is called linear gradient. And instead of top to the bottom, we can control the direction from left to right. We can specify here to right. The direction is to right, that means from left to right. And the initial first color will be red, here red, and finally it will be changed to the yellow. Intermediate colors, it is being changed gradually like that. Also diagonally, we can change the color here. Diagonally, linear gradient to bottom right. That means from top left, that will be started, and that is ended here, bottom right. Then between them, that is called intermediate color. Those are being changed slowly, gradually. That is called gradient, diagonal gradient. Red and yellow. Also, we can provide some angle. Then we can show different effect. Here 0 degree. 0 degree from red to yellow. From red to, you can draw one line here. This direction. This one is the reference line, and if that from red to yellow, if we are providing that angle here, that is 0 degree, and you can see one reference line and that direction line, and you can see the difference 0 degree. The difference is 0 degree, 0. Thus this one is 0 degree. 90 degrees. Think about that. This is the reference direction, reference this way, and this one is from here to here. You can draw like that, right? Then this degree is 90 degree. 100 degree means here our direction is from here to here, and this one is different, opposite direction, thus 180. In that way, also this one is this direction, and our original direction is like that, and that is the negative 90 degree, minus 90 degree. In that way, you can understand the meaning of that degree and the color stop, first one, second one. Depending upon that, you can see the linear gradient effect. Also we can provide multiple color stops. Multiple color stop means many colors, intermediate colors are provided. Then this one is drawing automatically, gradually. That is gradient. We are providing red here, first one, and the second one is yellow, and the final one is green. The intermediate color smoothly it is being changed automatically. And also we can show this rainbow color R from left here to the right. Then from left to right we can see the rainbow color R, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Also we can use transparency value, alpha value, if we are providing that. Then similarly, conceptually simple, same, and we can provide a color effect for that linear gradient. Also we can show this kind of effect with this linear gradient. The repeating linear gradient function is used to repeat linear gradients. Example here. Repeating linear gradient. The property name here, property value is repeating linear gradient, and this one is containing several parameters here. Red, yellow, 10%, and green 20%. What does that mean? Yellow 10% means yellow color is shown here. That is the 10% of the whole width, whole length, 10%. This is 100%. And the green color, that is shown 20%. Here, 1/5 here. That is color stop, green color and yellow color. Intermediate colors are being changed smoothly, gradually. And the others, those are not filled yet. And then in that case, for that empty space, that is being repeated in the same way. Thus we can see this kind of gradient effect. Also circularly, radially, we can show. And here, this one is the syntax for that. Background image, a radial gradient, and the shape, size, at position, and the start color and the last cut. Those are color stops. Default is radial gradient, evenly spaced color stops. Here, let's look at this one: red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green. And here, if we are looking at this one, then this one is a circle. Think about circle, because this one is a radial gradient. Thus, we should think about circle. And the center, that is red color. And the last one, here, intermediate color stop is yellow color. That is the center between this line. Diagonally, think about that diagonal line. And the final one is green color. That is the reference. And the others are gradually being changed. That is called the radial gradient. This is center, and the 50% if that is one line, and this one is the end. This one is the green color stop. This one is the yellow color stop. The first one, this one is red color stop, and the others are shown in the same way. This is called the radial gradient. Also, for this, the same concept. Also, we can provide this color. At different position, we can provide the color stop, that color. Red color, diagonal, we can draw the diagonal line. And yellow 15%, and this one is 60%, and the others being changed gradually. Shape, default is ellipse. The shape parameter is defining the shape. It can take the value circle or ellipse. Default is ellipse. This one is same, using the same size probably. Then this one is the shape of the circle, like that. Then the color stuff. First one is red, then yellow, green. And you can refer to others. And there are several other different size keywords. Closest side, farthest side, closest corner, farthest corner. Depending upon that, we can show different effect. Repeating a radial gradient. Also, this one can be repeated. If those are not filling the full space, then the empty space will be shown with the repeated color. In the same way, the repeating radial gradient, red and yellow and the green, and the others are just repeated. You can try others. And shadow effect. Shadow effect, briefly we learned about the shadow for the text in the previous lecture. And this one is about the shadow effect. About text shadow or about the box shadow, we can show that kind of effect. First one, text shadow. Even though we learned briefly about this, we can see again the shadow effect. The horizontally, vertically, we can show that shadow, and even the color we can show like this, as we learned already, exactly the same. Even the blurring effect, the third value, that is for blurring. How much that should be blurred, into that value we can control that. Also here, okay, another one. Okay, you can refer to others. And multiple shadows, multiple color for shadow we can show. That is really different from our actual real shadow, because multiple colors, those are not possible in our real shadow. But we can provide the shadow if we are enumerating, and those are divided with this comma. Then first one, first shadow, second shadow, we can provide. That is multiple shadow effect. Also, we can enumerate more, then those are applied. Okay, you can refer to others. Okay, the other is about the box shadow. Also, we can provide the box shadow instead of the text shadow. In the previous example, we learned about that, but here, this one is about the CSS box shadow property. Here, clear shadow, but depending upon the blurring effect, we can show some blurring effect with this third value. Similarly, like our previous text shadow. Okay, then those shadow effect can be applied in their application. Then that the whole source code may be more complicated. Thus, we should understand fully about each one respectively. Then we can integrate together. Then that will be more complicated. This one is including the jet index. Also, okay, for this card, this is shadow effect. That is not clear enough, but this one is using some shadow effect, box shadow. And this one is using the color RGBA. This one is the transparency, alpha value. Okay, you can try by yourself. Even this exercise you can try. Okay, I'll skip this one, text effects, and probably here let's try to stop here.